Meher Baba. Have any of you ever been to Niagara Falls?
Yeah.
Have any of you been upstream from Niagara Falls? There's this river, it's a big river, and it sort of is going pretty fast in about a mile, and it goes over the falls. So I kind of think, sort of, how do you say, the level of engagement with Meher Baba on the part of someone like me is like you're upstream from Niagara Falls, and you say you're a 15-year-old boy, right? And you sort of say, look, I'm going to go out a little bit into this thing, up to the water's rushing by, and then you go back to the shore. It's kind of fun and exciting and adventurous. And then you go out to where it's this deep, and you go out to this deep, and you almost get caught, but you get back to shore. And then you go out to get that deep. Suddenly you're caught. And the falls that's coming is, whoa, I didn't mean to get into this, but it's too late. That's what we've signed up for. We're going to say, oh my God, he doesn't mean to annihilate me, does he?
Hasn't been over the cliff yet.
And then, so.
You can't be sentenced twice.
Yeah. So he sort of snares us, and then once he gets us, then he does his work. Okay, well, this is our last session on Stay with God, and I'm just going to touch on a few things from Book 5 as we're doing. As you can see, there is tremendous riches in the whole Stay with God, but in this book especially there is. This is the opening of part 3, which in a way is a very good statement of what the whole thing, this whole section is about. And here you see the first occurrence of the phrase, stay with God. And Francis manages to bring this phrase in ways that have tremendous power. This is the first occurrence. Where did I put? Here it is. Return, O man, O brother and sister of me. Return, O myself, before the tide turns at his speaking, and we are carried by his Noah's flood whitherward like fools, drunk in an open boat on the ocean, to the way of art and God. Stay with God, for he is not only the almighty creator, but our brother and friend. His counsel is better than the wit of men, for he is deathless, and men are born to die. He is knowledge and existence, and knows all the paths to him, and leads those by the short path who surrender their path to him. He stirs up and urges forward. He retards and holds back to the right time. He drives one on to glorious victory. He hurls another into defeat. Andromache shall not receive of thee, Hector, Pelides' glorious arms, for this would be to rob Thetis of the victory whom God has promised. Okay, now one of the reasons, it's a magnificent statement of what this whole book is about. Also, you'll notice here a dense reference to characters who I'm sure you know right off the top. This book is full of references, and I hope to have time to explain what this one is about. When Francis gives these references in Stay with God, I know you won't know who a lot of it is, and just read on anyway. But let me tell you, these leaves do not idly fall. His references are really appropriate, and when you know what he's talking about, really powerful. This is a very, very powerful reference on his theme, actually. Here are a few more of these on the subject of art. The beginning of the third part, as you can see, part 3. The first 10 stanzas are his most complete statement on the subject of art. So you can see art is a statement of praise, etc., etc. So I'm just going to look at a couple of these. One is the theme I mentioned earlier, that the real art is the living embodiment of art as the perfect master or the avatar. So here's a stanza where you'll see this theme expressed. The art of God and his finished works, the living men, that's the art. That's the real thing. Wamadeva said, my glory is like the mountaintops. This is a character from the Upanishads. See? Lao Tzu said, how I glory on the breast of my mother. Do you know who Lao Tzu is? Chinese founder of Taoism. His great work is the Tao Te Ching. I never heard Baba say anything about him, but he sure sounds like a perfect master to me. Hui Ning said, "You read it to me, I'll tell you what it means." Do you happen to know who Hui Ning is? He's in Chinese Buddhism, the sixth patriarch after Bodhidharma. He was the founder of the southern branch. He was, along with Bodhidharma, might be called the great founder of Zen Buddhism. And this is a reference to the great work. It's one of the classics of Buddhism, of Mahayana Buddhism. It's called the Platform Sutra in Chinese. And do you know it, Paula? Have you read this? Any of it? Hui Ning. So this is one of the people. See, let's look at Francis. And he knew this stuff like this, you know. And what the episode is that Hui Ning actually was this illiterate, uneducated kid who somehow the mantle passed to him, and he had to flee from North China because the other disciples would have had his neck. And he established a southern branch of Zen Buddhism, and he was illiterate. So someone came to him with some text that the person wanted explained, and Hui Ning couldn't read. So he said, "You read it to me and I'll tell you what it means." In other words, you don't need to know how to read to have knowledge, right? That's the point Francis is making. Ibn Arabi said, "My heart is a pasture for gazelles and a convent for monks." Famous line from you know who Ibn Arabi was? He was a great perfect master, a giant. Died 1240, and is probably the greatest philosophical exponent of Sufism. He's like the Shankaracharya of Sufism. I could say a lot more about him. Sri Hamsa said, "I am an instrument played upon by the divine hand." And I'm going to read something from him in a minute. He was a 20th century figure who Francis regarded, I don't know, as a perfect master or as an exalted being. Inayat Khan said, "Everywhere I look, I see thy winning face." Francis said, "Brother sun," and he wasn't poetizing. Brother sun, sister moon. You know St. Francis of Assisi. One said, "Every day a new heaven is under my feet." One said, "Two that are your masters are my slaves." This is the story of a Sufi master approached by, who was the son of Akbar? Jahangir. Anyway, there's stories about all of these. One said, "Circumambulate me, and your pilgrimage is finished." There's a story. Huh?
The Kaaba?
The person was on a journey to the Kaaba,
Yeah.
and he said, "Just circumambulate me, and you can go home." We've done it. Actually, there's a story of Baba, just like that. Yeah. Attar, do you know Attar? The great Persian Conference of the Birds and many other works. "The road was but myself towards myself. Above," so these are all like saints or perfect masters. "Above these, alone in self-perfected glory, and who alone directly comes down, is God's avatar. Our works are but a crying towards these men, a cry from bondage to their pure release," and so forth. This is real art. This is what he means by true art. And our work, a crying towards these men, this is the art that we are capable of. Now here he has, so he has a lot of comments on contemporary culture and the sort of deviations that have happened. And so this is one. "The only reason for reviving painful experiences is to mature one's outlook, not feed excitement in others, sowing in them the seed of future pain, excusing it as legitimate communication." Now, so much of what passes as modern art is like this. At least I have always thought so. And now he's quoting about Buddha. "And he who was to become the Buddha, the inspirer of his time, the rest and spring of men for the next 500 years, was sheltered from the pain until his mature mind could grasp and subdue it." Do any of you happen to know the story that he's referring to here? You know the Buddha's childhood. Yeah, Gautama Buddha, Siddhartha was his name. The prophecy was given to his father that this young baby would either become a world monarch or a great savior of humankind. And as parents are wont to do, he wanted option number one. He wanted to stay at home. It's natural parental feeling. I don't criticize it. So in order to prevent him from having those experiences that would cause him to leave, they sheltered him from all experience. They kept a palace for him that sheltered him from all experience of suffering in the world. And there's a famous story where, as a young man, 3 days in a world, he somehow got out of the palace and saw a sick man, an old man, and a corpse. And he realized from that, suffering is the condition of the human condition. And he left the world and found the solution to the problem of suffering. So you see why Francis is bringing up this case. What is the purpose in showing suffering, violence, destructiveness, all these things? The only valid purpose is to mature your outlook so that you can overcome it, not just to indulge it and create the seeds of future pain in people who just go and do more of it. So, being dragged through hell by the heels, or dreaming in wan dream, a star in lieu of a ripening breast. I'd liefer have a kiss on the mouth, she said. I don't know, I can't say this in Aussie. Sprawling a nude across a canvas in rebellion, or peopling dead woods with faded musk of dryad. This is like the Romantic period, the poetry of that, this kind of licentious, lewd art, or sort of sentimental romanticism, is giving those as examples, are neither the material nor the impetus for art. Where is the Brahman who taught me? What splinters of that's actually a line by Rimbaud. This is the real question. Where is God? Where is the reality? That's what we have to be asking. What splinters of Brahma, by grace of the true teacher, might have informed them? This is an example of a critique of the sort of attitudes of art that just by showing, horrible things and brutal realism, you're doing art. You are not. It needs to actually provide a guidance towards the truth. He has a couple of stanzas here on, I'm going to read these because this is right at the core of his idea of what being an artist means. The word is talking about the word, right? The word also is food. Therefore, the real artists meditated on the word entrusted them by their teacher and disciplined their seeing to his form till their eyes brightened with tears and praise escaped them. Then, at his command, they in their turn spoke to the people in words or notes or line or chiseled planes, all the different art forms. And the people were astonished, and being thus fed in turn with the word of their work, the earth. Humanity is the crown of creation, and it's through man, through woman, that the whole earth is fulfilled, in fact. And the breath of God, through the masters and the saints, brought the rains and the sun in due season. And when floods came, or drought, they did not huddle in fear or curse the sky, but looked into their hearts to find the sin, and adjusted their sacrifice to the laws of nature. In a truth-based society, this is how you keep your harmony with nature. You look inside yourself. Without a word of the word in one's heart, without a reflection of his light, whose seventh shadow is the physical sun in one's eyes, that is, without the sacrifice having been made, which is savor to God, no food nourishes, but is poison, which paralyzes and finally kills us to our essential self. With bricks of dead tissue, we build our vast hospitals. With the steel of maimed minds, do we forge the knife which performs the operation. Yeah. Oh yes, adjusted their sacrifice to the laws of nature and God. Yeah. Because nature and God are always in harmonious attunement. And when you attune yourself to the one, you attune yourself to the other. Nature is like Prakriti and Purush, Prakriti is always in attunement to Purush. It's not Prakriti's fault. The world of nature, and so he's talking about the world of nature, helpless from our helplessness, weeps. And from her overmuch tears roll the floods, and from her shame and burning shines the sun of drought. This is the ancient view of these things. You can see it in ancient literature. Weeping and burning is nature because of our heedlessness. And the winds, finding no home, return to earth, to God. This is very contemporary, in the sense of what is the real cause of the afflictions?
Well, we magnified it about 1,000 times since we wrote this.
Yeah. I know these things have really come up into center stage now. So the artist, if he is to sing or write or paint or play in truth in praise of God, may not himself, but first, remember, the seed of man is the gathered light of form. The seed of light is the grace of the perfect master. You actually need to receive it from him. But first, find the golden thread by which he moves, the lovely note from which he has continuous becoming. Then find the holder of the thread, the lovely singer, and offer him his body, speech, and mind in service, nor asking in return the gift of art or anything. For even this finding and surrenderance is by grace, grace which puts us under eternal obligation of repayment. Heaven and earth move by the word alone, and it moves out from silence. The mover is the perfect master, who holds the thread which binds each one together in one gathered piece of movement, who sings the song which is our sighs and tears, our well-directed thought and sudden laughter. So if you want to be an artist, this is how. Find that golden thread, find the holder of the thread, and wait for that one to give you the word which is the source of all words. So this whole section, stanzas 1 through 10, here is the fullest statement on the theme of art that you'll find in Stay with God. There's a lot more besides that. Now here is another central concept in what art is, and we've already touched on it a number of times, and that is the vertical axis. That is to say, the horizontal plane is like the plane of human limitedness, right? And the vertical axis is like the human act of standing up in the line of ascent to divinity. So remember in the very beginning, wings to the glaciers of Kailas, the Mount Kailas. So that's a symbol of the vertical axis that appeared right in the first line, and that he's used many, many times since then throughout the poem. In Book 3, in God's Speaking, we had in the last part of that the tree. Remember the tree of knowledge? We were talking about that yesterday. That's another symbol of the vertical axis. So now he uses that a lot here. So here is okay. Let me give you a couple of examples out of that. In fact, I'm going to. I want to illustrate some of his use of sources because it's such a big part of Book 5. So I'm going to read a little bit actually from a book by Hamza. Oops, it's not here. Yeah, Bhagwan Sri Hamza. This is a book entitled The Holy Mountain. Now, there's a citation to this. By the way, Stay with God has notes. If you can get a copy of the book, notice in the back, there are all these notes referenced by page and line number. Francis put these notes in because Baba asked him to, actually. So that can be a big help. In this case, Francis does reference Hamza's book, Holy Mountain, and I saw it there when I first read Stay with God in 1971. But finally, 2 years ago at Avatar's Abode, they had the book and I read it. And I was blown away. I had no idea what kind of book it would be. And it's by, it was written in the early 20th century in Marathi. Actually, the edition has a 30-page introduction by William Butler Yeats. So it became quite famous, at least to that set. And Hamza was a ardent, rapturous lover of Lord Dattatreya. Dattatreya, Narayan Maharaj was a devotee of Dattatreya. It's the three-headed Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh god. And his father wanted him to, he was born of a wealthy family, but he wound up renouncing the world and wanted to do the pilgrimage of Mount Kailash. Remember that? The first day, for those who are here, I showed a bunch of images of Mount Kailash. And there's a 34-mile pilgrimage around it. And he wanted to, this is early 20th century, it wasn't so easy to get there. He wanted to go up to a little pond quite high up, like 19,000 feet. Gaurakund is the name of it. And have the personal darshan of Lord Dattatreya. And I found the whole book to be so moving, the quality that he had of just simple faith and adoration of Lord Dattatreya. And he was almost killed a whole bunch of times trying to get there. In fact, trying to get up to the pond, the first day he almost froze to death. But then he tried it again. And there were dacoits, bandits, got tracked, they almost killed him. It's quite a story. But here's his account of the vision of Lord Dattatreya. And it sounds like a description of God realization. It's something mighty high, to say the least. And Francis, when he read this in the 30s or 40s, was very impressed that here was someone in modern times, that would have been 30 years earlier, having the kind of experience that you read about in these ancient texts. So it made quite an impression on him. And he treats him throughout Stay with God like a God-realized soul. So I'm going to read a couple pages. I typed this out myself. I was so moved by this thing. Here on this lake, Gaurakund, my object, which I had cherished all these long years, was fulfilled by the loving grace of Sri Sadguru, my master. That would be Dattatreya, the god. My joy knew no bounds. The darshan of Sri Kailash, Lake Manas, and Gaurakund. I showed you images of all this last weekend for those who are here, the lakes here. Carried away all the strain and stress of the arduous journey. My heart was elated. I felt my life's ideal was fulfilled. My ideal was to have a sight, a physical form of the Lord Dattatreya himself, and to get myself initiated into the realization of self. I was determined either to realize this or die in meditation while sitting in yogic posture. I began by looking until he's up, imagine, way, way up in this frozen pond, no help anywhere, right? I think Mount Kailash is 22,000 feet, and he's up at, 19,000 feet, something like that. I began by looking in all four directions, and then spread my tiger skin on the icy floor of the lake, planting my staff on the right. I again looked at the sky and at Mount Kailash, crying, "Victory, victory to the Lord my Master." I stood for a few minutes facing the north. After this, I sat on the tiger skin in the Sadasana posture. Does anybody know what that is? Probably it's a yogic, even now in Hatha Yoga people probably do it. Maybe it's a standard lotus position.
That's the lotus, that's right. That's the fruit.
Yeah. With my face towards the north. It was sunset. I closed my eyes and passed into meditation, all along trying to fix the mind steadily on a mental image of the Lord Dattatreya in the center between my eyebrows. The first night, I experienced terrible hardships. Bitter cold, piercing winds, incessant snow, inordinate hunger, and deadly solitude combined to harass the mind. The body became numb and unbearable, unable to bear pains. Snow covered me up to my breast. Until after midnight, I was fighting desperately with my mind. My body helped my mind, that is, body-mind were both his enemy. And I thought both of them were bent on defeating my object. But self-confidence, determination, and my unbounded love towards my master conquered them in the end. I succeeded in subjugating the invulnerable enemies and was steadily riveted to my meditation, and as a consequence, lost consciousness of the body and of the world outside. It is so difficult to say anything further when I had passed beyond these things. Every moment increased the intensity of my yearning to see my master, and it was while I was in this state that I thought I heard a voice. I did not leave my meditation. Later on, I found that the image which formed the subject of my meditation grew more and more dim. Yet I refused to allow my mind to leave its point of concentration. Instead, I fixed it there with added determination. "O my child, O my dear," I heard these words thrice, but did not open my eyes, for the mental image of my master was still there between the eyebrows. I wanted to see the Lord Dattatreya in the physical form, and naturally it was impossible for me to be satisfied with his voice alone. We're talking a real lover of God, right? Moreover, no sight of physical form was possible until the mental one had disappeared. I wonder how he knew that. As I was so keen about the physical sight, I did not leave my meditation, though I heard the call 3 times. At last, all of a sudden, the mental form disappeared. Automatically, my eyes opened, and I saw, standing before me, the Lord Dattatreya, my master, in his physical form. At once I prostrated myself on the icy ground like a staff and placed my head at his lotus feet. 3 days had passed like 3 moments for me. My master lifted me up like the Divine Mother and hugged me to his breast and caressed me all over the body. Thereafter he gave me the mantra, sacred words, and initiated me into the realization of the self. What a great bliss it was! I cannot describe that joy, as it is beyond any description through words. This is a Sanskrit shloka. The Master preaches through his silence, and all the doubts of the disciple are solved. Thus says a Sanskrit poet, "You can take as much enlightenment from these lines as you find in them. Here, my manas, mind, merged into antakarana, heart. Antakarana, with the manas, merged into the chitta, mind stuff. The chitta, along with the antakarana and manas, merged into the buddhi, intellect. The buddhi, with chitta, antakarana, and manas, merged into the ahankar, egoism." I don't know if you've ever studied the subject. These are all technical terms, and you know very well. These are the different layers of the mind. It's all dissolving. And it sounds like God realization to me. And the ahankar, with the buddhi, chitta, antakaran, and manas, all merged into the absolute Brahma. I found myself reflected everywhere in the whole universe. It was one harmony, full wisdom, infinite love perennial, and bliss eternal. Where was the body, its tenements, and the I? It was all Satchidananda, truth, wisdom, and bliss. So this is a pretty amazing experience, isn't it? What's that?
Some of the words that you use
Samkhya, yeah. Samkhya philosophy, yeah. I've done a whole weekend on the false self. We study a lot of these things. These are the layers of the false self in Sankhya, and also Vedanta has a lot of that too. Yeah.
It's the experience of going back on one.
It sounds like merging into Satchidanand, God realization, doesn't it? So it's a pretty amazing passage. And then it's so moving. Then Dattatreya takes him in his arms and carries him back to the base camp. In 10 minutes. It took him days to get up there, but like that. So anyway, this is Francis was very impressed, and I have to say that so am I. So now you will find a stanza. I'll just read this and you'll recognize it. The sun was setting over Sri Kailas. I bowed to the four directions, spread my tiger skin on the ice, planted my staff on the right, and cried, "Victory to the Lord, my master." Then sat in Sadhasana, facing north, fixing his glorious image between my eyes. Cruel winds, bitter snow, bitter cold, snow up to my chest, but unbounded love defeated these enemies. On the third day, the Lord Dattatreya, in his physical form, came to me and picked me up as a child and caressed me. Manas merged into Antakarana, Antakarana into Chitta, Chitta into Buddhi, into Ahamkara, and all into the Satchitananda of the Supreme Self. So you see what what he's referencing here. And this fits into the Kailash complex and also the theme of art that we have here. You know, the vertical axis and the mountain and the tree. Now he's investing this whole thing with a human experience of realization of God, it sounds like, in that place. So as part of that poetic complex and part of that idea of art, you get the idea what he's doing here. He's giving a human story to go with it as part of what art is. So when he drops these references, you could maybe see from this example, this is a knockout of a story. So many of his references are like this.
So this vertical thing that you're saying, it's the person, soul is actually taking that standing there without getting up or even temptation. The voice comes. How can you not hear the voice of the master and just run? You see what I'm saying? So it's so there, but just the grace of God still is there, master is still there.
Right.
To take them through it all.
Yeah, that's right. The master, you see the master's grace, the seed of light, as it were. I'm so impressed he hears this voice, but he won't open his eyes because the image is still there. This is a real lover of God.
The prophet is the same way, actually, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's doing the challenging, and actually the Naboth, the girl actually comes in front of him.
He won't.
That's how it gets realization.
This looks like the highest order of experience to me. And so anyway, Francis uses it. So when you see like the word Kailash, these are some of the poetic resonances that he's investing with that, and part of his conception of what art is. And now just 3 stanzas after this.
Hang on, before you leave there, I can't get it clear in my head. It says Hamza's vision. So is the I in all of this Hamza?
Yes.
Or is it Francis?
In this case, Francis is doing his own, that's what the quotation marks mean. He's giving his own synopsis. What we read before was directly from the book, in English translation.
Right.
And Francis took that and put right in here in a 1-stanza condensation.
Okay, so it's Hamza. The I is Hamza.
Is Hamza.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah. So Francis is about to talk about the fall of the West, and he's putting in here, this is the real thing. This is what it's really about. And this is right in modern times that it was all there. In fact, in about 3 stanzas after this. Okay, that's 12 was a stanza we just read. In fact, I'm going to read a little bit before this to show about the fall into the modern fall from truth. We became enamored of travel, intoxicated with the sensation of movement. Let us hitchhike to another city. Now he's talking about his externalization, going out instead of going in. Let us hitchhike to another city. Let us find more oil wells. Let us find oil in the ocean. Let us build an opera house. By the way, they were doing that in Sydney. Yeah. Let us organize more appreciation classes. Last year, 10,000. This year, 20,000 must be our goal. Of this externalized mentality. Let's build a big plane, a rocket plane, to go to the moon. We must go somewhere where we will not find ourselves. We were saying, later on he calls this bubble whizzing. We were saying, breakfast in London, lunch in Cairo. The Arctic route cuts off 2 hours. We say diesel instead of train. Diesel is faster than train. Jet is faster than plane. More time to consider the lily in another's heart, to watch the leaf bud and flower putting forth of our own. I mean, this is so much the modern world. Now, this is another stanza on the vertical axis theme. And here's something that Francis does. If you read the poem, in its entirety, I'm just trying to indicate some of the things he does. He'll give a true expression of a theme, and then he'll give a maiavic version of it. So we've had the tree, Mount Kailash, all that stuff. Now he's going to give the maiavic version. The skyscrapers of New York are the cathedrals of America. And now he's going to say what a true cathedral is. A cathedral is an aspiration, a glory, a peace, a silence reaching to the silence which is God. It is the vertical line from the horizontality of human limitation to the dimensionless point of human divine mind, unlimitedness. You get that? This is the vertical axis thing. It is the vertical line from the horizontality of human limitation to the dimensionless point of human divine mind, unlimitedness. The sushumna of unfolding from the Muladhara to the 1,000-petaled lotus in the crown of the head. Y'all got that one?
Central chakra.
This is Kundalini. Yeah. Sushumna is the central nadi that goes up to there, and there's the Ida and Pingala on both sides. And the 7 chakras, the base one right down there is the Muladhara. And then there are Svadhisthana, Anahata. And the top one is actually the Sahasrara, which means the 1,000-petaled lotus up here. So in Kundalini Yoga, you traverse that. So he's saying that's what a cathedral represents. Right? I'm sure all the medieval monks understood all of it perfectly well. But they were doing meditation, and we're probably having such experiences, okay? This is what a cathedral really means. Now look at how Francis is bringing these things together. A cathedral is a line between man and God, studded with gems of adoration. You should go to New York. You should see culture stockpiled. You should see the herds of faces which don't smile, the crowds of eyes which don't laugh, the poor children of the rich being wheeled in Central Park, buttoned to the eyes from the weak sun. The skyscrapers of New York are beautiful in their reach to death, lovely with red tears of undelicate labor. See, so he's using this, you see us building on this theme of the vertical axis, and this is the maiavic, false, distorted version of it that we've created. He actually spent time in New York in 1952 waiting for Baba. He was, Fred Winterfeld had him as a sort of a janitor for a couple of months.
I'm surprised we don't even see a forecasting of the Twin Towers coming down.
That's right. What was wrong with them?
Yeah.
Now here's another use of this vertical axis. By the way, did you know there's a memorial tower being built at Maribad right now. It's almost done. Mm-hmm. And it's an expression of exactly the same theme. There's the formula of it. Actually, Ted Judson, in explaining it, has a quote of Ibn Arabi, the great giant, and it's the horn of Gabriel, which in Ibn Arabi's interpretation, it means this. It's kind of amazing. This is Ibn Arabi's understanding of the horn of Gabriel in the Quran. That the word of this wouldn't be the language we used in Islam, but the word of God emanates from a most finite point. And as it descends, it becomes wider and wider until it has infinite horizontal extension. Right? Isn't that a beautiful understanding of what the horn of Gabriel is? So that's the same idea, really. as the true cathedral. And I mentioned yesterday that a cathedral, I mean, they're magnificent. I mean, the richness of the symbolism is really something. But the ground plan is a cross, the ground plan of a cathedral, which is like it's as if the crucifixion of Christ is beneath my feet. He's sacrificed himself and actually walk on him. And on that foundation arises this aspiration to God. So it's really a magnificent architectural expression of the Christian theme.
And the Christian churches, they were squared circles, weren't they, on the bottom?
Yeah, I think they are squared circles, yeah. Mm-hmm. And the nave and the transept are within it. Yeah. It's a beautiful, beautiful idea. Francis was quite alive to it. I have a whole bunch of images of cathedrals. I get a minute, I'll show you some of them. But now later, here we get in fact, I'll do it right now, why not? Just take a sec. Since I went to all the trouble of ripping off all these images from the... They really are pretty extraordinary. So you can see the verticality of them. This is in Russia. Now here is another form of this vertical axis theme. Let's see, is it here? Yeah. Now here he gives, I'm just trying to illustrate the richness of this book, how he uses so many different approaches and metaphors. And I tried to draw it. I'm not a good artist at all, but this part of it is an illustration of what he talks about here. Ideograms. Draw a vertical line. Down this we came in search of answer to our question, who am I? And to there. Draw a horizontal line across the bottom. Rock bottom. Metal body, metal brain. Plant, worm, fish, bird, beast, man-bodied brain. Man-bodied, man-brained. The goal of form, full consciousness, of gross world, finiteness. Rock bottom, terminus, and turning point. So actually this could be considered human form also, although I drew it there. Raise the vertical line, right? You've got this vertical line and you raise it up its axis. That's what these things are supposed to represent. And begin the glory road through the 6 planes of singing. The 2 lines now also form the cross of the crucifix. As you raise the line up, right, you get a crucifix. On the 5th plane, the real singing begins. The secondary art, devotion. Remember how that's the secondary art? The real thing begins on the 5th plane. On the 6th plane, the divine love play of lover and beloved. This top is the 7th plane, where both lines vanish. Actually, they were never marked by you on the paper. So you'll see a lot of things like this where theme and variation, the vertical axis theme, he was just doing it in pure geometrical terms as another figure for the understanding of this idea. Now, from time to time we've mentioned this theme of the sun and the moon, and I wish there were time, but I don't think I would take it, to go back to Book 1, where he first introduces it. And he was talking about Baba at the Manzali and the perfect balance of these 2 natures in Baba. You know, the moon being the gentle, comforting, beauteous, loving, mysterious, and the sun being the majestic, glorious, fiery, fearsome aspect of God, the lamb and the lion, and how they are in perfect balance in Meher Baba. And then we saw the same thing come up in Book 3, where the moon aspect creates the romance in reincarnation, and the sun dawning upon it exposes its delusiveness and falseness. Right? Remember some of this. And we saw in book 4 the moon path and the sun path. So this is a theme he's been developing quite a bit. Well, there's another variant on this which comes up a lot in book 5. And it's another reference. It has to do with a story in Homer's Odyssey about Ares and Aphrodite. Do you know who Ares and Aphrodite are?
Ares is the Lord of Aphrodite is the one of love.
Yeah. Yeah. War and love, and Mars and Venus are the Roman names for the same gods and goddesses. Well, there's in the Odyssey, after Odysseus has found the land of Alcinous, who winds up sending him home. Francis interprets Alcinous as the figure of a perfect master there. And nobody knows yet who Odysseus is, but they're welcoming him and entertaining him and treating him with great respect. And the divine, the gifted minstrel there starts singing songs. And one of them is this story of Ares and Aphrodite. And let's see, do I have images of it here? I may. Oh, I do somewhere. Yeah, here we go. The story is this. Aphrodite, I think it's the sister of Ares, but she's married to Hephaestus, who is the divine smith. Francis identifies him with fire and Agni in different places. And Hephaestus is lame, whereas Ares is, tough and sexy, macho, right? So Ares and Aphrodite start having an affair. And Helios, the god of the sun, sees them and tells Hephaestus that he's being made a cuckold by his wife Aphrodite. So Hephaestus, being a divine smith, craftsman, contrives this invisible net, a web, which he hangs over their bed. And he tells his wife Aphrodite that he's going off to Lemnos, where he's highly revered. And the moment he's gone, Aphrodite and Hermes jump into bed. Okay, and at that moment, the net falls down, and they're caught. And all the gods are called in, and they see this embarrassing spectacle, humiliating spectacle for the two of them. So these are some images from class. There you see the three of them, right? There's the smith right here. Hephaestus is there, spinning his web, and here's Ares and Aphrodite. And so it was a theme of neoclassical art, all this kind of thing. I just grabbed some of these images. Here it is from the Odyssey. So what Francis refers to this maybe 10 times in Stay with God. And here is how he's using it. It's like these two aspects of godhood. Do you know the terms Jamal and Jalal? Jamal would be the gentle, the moon aspect, and Jalal would be the fiery, the sun aspect. When they get degraded, and they get turned into their myopic version, their false version, they get corrupted and debased into what he represents as these two figures, Ares and Aphrodite. Ares is blustering, a swaggered, macho, violent, and Aphrodite is sex, just cheap sex, sentimentality, cheap sentiment, all those things. So you see that these two have a relationship to divine qualities, right? They do. In Meher Baba, you see them in their true form. But what has happened is that it has been cheapened and debased into this. So Francis brings this up as a critique of what happened in the modern world, where, Jesus got pushed aside, and in his place was substituted this Ares, and he has a lot of criticism of colonialism, of going outward in the outer world, conquering, violence, all this kind of thing. This is a cheapened, debased form of the true divine qualities. Yeah.
The highest divine quality is love. God is the lowest divine quality, which is love.
Yeah.
Opposite of love.
Yeah. And love actually can manifest as either the Jamali or Jalali. It can be either what? The moon and sun, both are alternate expressions. And in the Master, you get the perfect balance and perfect expression of them. But what's happened is that because of the falling away, these cheap substitutes got put in their place. So he has quite a few stanzas where he talks about it. I'll just give you one or two of them. So this is one of his diagnosis, part of his diagnosis of the disease of modern times. Let's see, like here. Okay. Okay, and then, but when men had turned their backs on the saints and the saint in them, Francis is saying that really at the time of the Renaissance, the whole civilization turned away from the saints and looked outwards instead. They had to wave beat it and foot slog it, ride on horses. He's actually talking here about, the conquest of the world, the navigation, the British, the Spanish, conquering the New World, all that. And knowing no longer the gods of God, thy gods, O man, they employed men to write prayers for them, to know God. That is, after the theologians had decided who exactly he was. How did the Australians say that? Who exactly he was. But of course...
Oh, who exactly he was, yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Right. That's it. But of course, it was Ares the Blusterer whom they worshipped, after changing his name to Jehovah, which was a funny way of saying Jehovah, which is God in English. Francis is... So God got changed into Ares, this Ares they worshipped and sacrificed lovely Jesus on Ares' altar. Blood scarlet for cardinals, blood purple for kings. Denied Jesus arisen again as Muhammad and painted pictures of a man they called Christ minding sheep. Right, Christ, go mind the sheep, right, while we do whatever it is that we want. And played shepherd games, reviving the Roman cult, paying poets to write verses about it, with all kinds of poetry, and from Virgil to the Renaissance to Milton and others, all about sort of the shepherd stuff. Thus, Christ Ares, supreme muddlement and destruction of all true values in art and living. The kings and the general herd of businessmen and workers never quite sure which one was in their prayers, and the theologians swapping them around as suited the particular policy of the rulers. This is an example of what you're going to find in Book 5. You see, he's talking about fundamental spiritual falsehoods that found their way in. So here it's the debasement of a divine archetype, the sun moon, that gets cheapened into this. You follow this? Follow what this idea is about?